Welcome to the Explainer. So, when I say genetics, what's the first thing that pops into your head? DNA, right? Of course. But what if I told you the real star of the show, the molecule that's actually out there doing most of the work, is the one we usually think of as just a sidekick? Yep. Today, we're diving deep into RNA. So you've probably heard this a million times. DNA is the master blueprint of life. And that's true. But think about it. A blueprint can't build anything by itself, right? It just sits there. You need a construction crew, and that is RNA. It's this incredibly versatile, active workforce that's out there building the house, running the factory, and yet even managing the staff. So while DNA is this super stable, double-stranded archive, RNA is its dynamic, single-stranded partner, always ready for action.
Okay, so to really get why RNA is so special, we have to start with a story you might already know. It's called the central dogma of molecular biology. Basically, it's the fundamental genetic chain of command, the way information flows in pretty much every living cell.
This classic model shows how it works. You've got these instructions, right? They're locked away safely inside the DNA. The first step is to copy those instructions into a temporary RNA message. That's called transcription. Then, that message gets read and translated into proteins. And it's the proteins that do, well, almost everything in our bodies.
All right, so let's just quickly touch on DNA's job again. The best way to think about it is like a priceless original manuscript. It's tucked away deep inside a super secure archive, which is the cell's nucleus. I mean, its entire structure is built for one thing: stability and super reliable long-term storage. So you might be wondering, how does it stay so safe? Well, it's not just floating around in there. Our cells have this brilliant way of packaging it. They take these super long DNA strands and wrap them tightly around proteins called histones. It creates this really dense, coiled structure, kind of like molecular bubble wrap. It protects the genetic code from any damage and makes sure it stays a perfect, reliable archive for the long haul. But having a perfect archive is one thing. To actually use those instructions, the cell needs to call in that active workforce we talked about, RNA. And this is basically how it happens. It's a three-step process that gets the message from that protected blueprint inside the nucleus all the way out to the construction site in the main part of the cell.
Now, to get this job done, RNA has a whole specialized crew. And the most famous member, the one you've probably heard of, is messenger RNA, or mRNA. Just like its name says, it's the courier. It makes a temporary copy of a gene and then carries those precious instructions out of the nucleus.
Okay, so once that mRNA message gets to the construction site, it needs materials, right? You can't build without bricks. That's where transfer RNA, or tRNA, comes in. You can think of tRNAs as a fleet of little specialized trucks. Each one is designed to haul one specific type of amino acid, and those are the building blocks of proteins.
And what about the construction site itself? Where is all this happening? Well, it's a molecular factory called the ribosome. And get this, the ribosome itself is built mostly from another type of RNA called ribosomal RNA, or rRNA. And the rRNA isn't just the walls of the factory, it's the actual machinery inside that stitches all those amino acids together to build a brand new protein. Pretty cool, huh?
But, and this is where the story gets really interesting, that whole protein-building crew we just talked about, the mRNA, the tRNA, the rRNA, that actually only accounts for a tiny fraction of all the RNA in our cells. Seriously, most of the RNA that gets copied from our DNA, it never actually goes on to help build a protein. So, what in the world is all that other RNA doing? This is where we uncover RNA's most surprising and maybe most important roles. It turns out a huge chunk of all that RNA is what we call non-coding. Its job isn't to carry a message to build something. Nope. Its job is to be the manager. These non-coding RNAs are the master regulators, the bosses, that decide which genes get turned on, which get turned off, and exactly when. One really big class of these regulators is called long non-coding RNAs, or, you guessed it, lncRNAs. These are long strands of RNA, and they can physically grab onto DNA and other proteins to orchestrate these huge, complex genetic programs. And there's one example that is just fascinating. So in female mammals, Every cell has 2 X chromosomes. But having a double dose of all those genes would actually be toxic, so one of those entire chromosomes has to be completely shut down. And the molecule that does this absolutely monumental job, it's a long non-RNA called XIST. It literally paints itself all over one of the X chromosomes, silencing it completely. It is just a stunning example of RNA acting as a master genetic switch.
And RNA's power to regulate isn't just about big, sweeping changes. It can be incredibly precise, too. There's this process called RNA interference, or RNAi, that uses tiny little RNA molecules as genetic heat-seeking missiles. I'm serious. These small RNAs can be programmed to hunt down one specific type of messenger RNA. And when they find their target, they lock on and trigger its destruction. The gene gets silenced before its protein can even be made. It's an incredible defense system.
So, because of all this incredible versatility, the fact that RNA could be a messenger, a builder, and a regulator, it probably won't surprise you that scientists have figured out how to harness it as a really powerful tool. And we see it in all kinds of fields, from forensics to biotech. Let's take forensics. A DNA sample from a crime scene is great, right? It can tell you who was there. But what it can't tell you is what part of their body that sample came from. But rRNA profiling can. See, different tissues in our body, like skin, blood, or saliva, they all have their own unique RNA signatures. So scientists can analyze the RNA to figure out the tissue's origin, which can be crucial evidence that DNA by itself just can't provide. And of course, we have to talk about CRISPR. You've almost definitely heard of it, this revolutionary gene editing technology that has just turned biology on its head. But did you know that RNA is the secret weapon that makes the whole thing work? Okay, so here's the magic. Scientists design a special piece of RNA called a guide RNA. And this little molecule acts like a highly specific GPS for the whole system. The guide RNA literally leads a DNA cutting enzyme, usually one called Cas9, to one precise spot in the entire 3 billion-letter genome. It is the ultimate targeting system, and it is all powered by RNA. So let's just step back for a second and take it all in. It's pretty clear that RNA isn't just some simple messenger, is it? It's an entire crew with a shocking variety of jobs. It's the messenger, carrying the code. It's the transporter, delivering the materials. It's the assembler, building the proteins. It's the regulator, controlling the whole operation. And now, it's this revolutionary tool that we can actually use to rewrite the code of life. Incredible.
So we've seen that RNA is way, way more than just a simple courier. Yeah, DNA might be the blueprint, but RNA is the architect, the engineer, and the construction manager, all rolled into one incredibly dynamic molecule. Its story is absolutely central to the complexity of all life. And it's a story that's still being written, which leaves us with a pretty big question. What other secrets of life is RNA just waiting to tell us next?